Welcome to another event of U version 2.2, a personal journey that I'm taking to make personal branding accessible. Personal branding is kind of a fancy term when it comes to most people. And, for me, the journey that I took in the last couple of years, it has transformed me in ways that I never imagined that I could go into. Or it's been a crazy journey. Enough of me. I mean, I don't want to waste a lot of time sharing my story again and again. So today we have Mariya with us. Mariya is a two-time TEDx speaker, a keynote speaker, and a thought leader on intentional adaptability and human potential. She has built two businesses and several careers as a lawyer, university professor, and interpreter, being fluent in 5 languages. I can barely say 2. I don't know how she does it. Mariya also holds nearly a dozen of university degrees and qualifications. And over the last few years, she's been focusing on researching and gathering insights into both physiology and psychology behind human behavior and happiness and success. Mariya, welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm wonderful. So happy to be here.
I hope I introduced you well today. So let's get into it. I mean, it's a pleasure having you here. Thanks for being a part of this. Let's dive straight into it. As you know, this event is about personal branding and how personal branding transforms one person and makes people a better version of themselves. So what is personal branding to you, Mariya?
I think personal branding is what people think about you when you're not in the room and what they say about you when you're not in the room. This is what personal branding is about.
Yeah.
And I think the key is to demonstrate and to explain what is your mission, what is your vision, what is your cause, and also to show how much you care about it.
Absolutely.
Because, as they say, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
So in particular, Simon Sinek is a wonderful example of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So how has your journey been so far? What's it been like for you so far?
Quite a roller coaster. As you mentioned in my introduction, a few careers, a few languages, a few this and a few that.
Yeah.
Lots of universities. I studied on 3 continents, at 5 universities.
Yeah.
And just in Melbourne itself, I studied at Monash, Melbourne, and Deakin universities. So yeah, that's been quite interesting, quite a ride.
Yeah. So before we go ahead, can you adjust your position a bit to the right or left so that you're in the middle of the screen, not the opposite direction? Yeah, that looks way better. So by the way, I forgot to welcome all our viewers. This is the first time I'm doing an event which is broadcasted live on Facebook, LinkedIn Live, and YouTube. So keep us engaged, guys. Give us a feeling that people are watching us so that we get more excited and we get more engaged to answer your questions. Keep the questions coming, whether it's on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube. Happy to pick up questions every now and then and answer those questions. So your trump card for personal branding, Mariya, is networking. Why is networking so important over here?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a huge misconception about networking, what networking is. And a lot of people think that it's about running around to as many events as possible and shoving business cards to everyone possible. And this is how a lot of people perceive networking. But networking is actually a form of branding, marketing, and not just sales. And if you listen to interviews with self-made, successful people, public figures, when they asked what were the keys to your success, they all would say that one of the main keys to success was networking.
Oh, yeah. Okay, but usually people say networking. I mean, or some people use networking as it's a very transactional thing. They just use it to get something. But what you're saying is networking can unravel a whole different layer out of it, or unravel a whole different picture out of it. So how do you bring about that perspective? I mean, this is especially for viewers who think networking is transactional, but it's we are giving a contradicting theory that it is way more than that. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it does depend from where you network. Even within Australia, if we look at Sydney, it's very different type of networking in comparison to Melbourne.
Yep.
So in Sydney, networking does happen faster and it's more transactional.
Mm-hmm.
But in Melbourne, it's more relationship based. But it doesn't matter where you are in the world. Networking is based on building relationships. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it
So
does vary,
yep.
but the foundation is building relationships.
Yeah. So coming back to that, I mean, whenever I talk about networking to people, one thing they say is it's very exhausting, and I often feel that too. After a meetup, I'm like, no, don't talk to me anymore. I've done talking for today. Let's talk tomorrow, right? So it's very exhausting experience. So from what I see so far, you are a very happy networker. So how do you keep your energy up while networking to people, and you vouch and you force everyone to go for networking events? So what's your secret on keeping that up?
Well, I did learn it a hard way because initially, when I started networking, I did go to everything I was invited to,
Yeah.
and I networked from 6 a.m. till nearly midnight, from Monday till Friday. And after a couple of years, I did feel exhausted because I wasn't doing it right.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a learning experience. It was very useful, very interesting learning experience. But I came to realize that networking is about, when we want to achieve something, we need to set a goal. We need to have clarity about what are we trying to get to,
Yep.
what are we aiming for.
Mm-hmm.
And once we have clarity about what we're trying to achieve, only then we can create a proper strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So networking has to be strategic. It's not about running around, but
Okay.
you create a strategy and to stick to it for a few months in order to see if it's working or not. And you see, like, we can network for different reasons. It's not just to get new clients for a business, it could be to find a new job, or maybe to boost our personal development, or maybe to find like minded people to mastermind with, or maybe to find people who will become not specifically your clients, but your referral partners. So they would refer clients to you. Or it could be looking for people who can collaborate with you or partner up with you in a particular mission or in regards to a particular project. So you see, there are so many goals, so many things that you can achieve through networking. And before you start running around and saying yes to everything,
Mm.
you need to decide, okay, where am I going with
Yeah.
this? Like, what am I doing this specifically for? And then look through invitations, because yeah, you do get many of them. You get invited to a lot of things, in particular in Melbourne, because so much is happening.
Yeah.
And this is a good thing
Absolutely.
and a bad thing. Good thing that
Yep.
is so much to choose from, but the bad thing is that there is so much to choose from.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to
So
have your priorities straight and your goals straight, and then it's going to be easier to say no and to see what is a distraction and what is actually an opportunity. Yeah. So the first step would be just to clarify for yourself and for others as well. What are you trying to achieve?
I really like the point that you mentioned, that you have to network for months. Most people they need instant results. For example, they go for a networking event and they need to get something out of it, but it doesn't quite happen that way. And I think that's where a lot of frustration and struggles come out from. So. How slow or how quick does one do networking, or how do they get to that spot, or how do they get to the point that they feel that they have achieved something?
Yeah. It's not just about networking, it's about everything in life that we need to focus on progress.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about progress. And as long as you feel progressing, that's the most important part. And fruits will come. They will come later if you stay consistent. And that's the other thing also about anything in life. If we want to achieve something, it is about consistency. It's not about pressure, but it's about being consistent with small efforts. Let's say, for example, if you go to a gym to build muscle or to lose weight, if you go 2, 3 times, it's not going to work,
Yeah.
but if you go for a month, for example, every other day, then you'll see the difference. So whatever it is in life, whether it's networking or anything else, it is about putting consistent efforts.
Now, I think we have to bring a bit of perspective into this conversation. So we've been talking about networking, how how to start it, how it's not a transactional thing. It can take a long time. But what does all this have to do with personal branding, Maria?
It really helps to find people to collaborate with because when we look at, I did a lot of research into people who are deemed to be self-made successful people, and the majority of them behave as if it was a one-person game, as if they achieved everything by themselves.
Hmm.
But there is nothing that can be further from the truth.
Yeah.
They simply don't reveal how many, mentors and coaches and guardians and accountability bodies and collaborators, and partners, supporters, cheerleaders they have had. But there's like a whole army behind
Yep.
them. The reason why they succeeded is because they were not doing it by themselves. So networking is a wonderful way to find those people who can bring the best in you and who can collaborate with you to achieve truly big potential.
Yeah. So that's a beautiful way to explain it. What I like about networking is you kind of unravel a different version of yourself when you consistently network. You learn more things about you. You learn what is it that you actually like and what is it that you don't like. Yes, you can do your self thinking sitting at home or talking to your partner, but that's not progressing, or that doesn't have a variety in it. So talking to different people kind of can blow up your mind into what you actually like, rather than being very having a very narrow mindset. So what is your experience in with learning, or figuring out who you are? How has it been with regards to networking and personal branding?
It was absolutely amazing. Before I started networking, I was a lawyer, and it was very different from networking with business owners. And once I started networking within business circles of Melbourne, I realized that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a business owner. I wanted
Yeah.
to do business. And I really enjoyed being a lawyer, but that part of my life ended. You know, I realized that I wanted something different. And networking being so beneficial to me. In particular, I just realized that actually the vast majority of my best friends I met through networking.
Awesome. That's such a great feeling to have, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm getting echo from somewhere. I'm not sure where it is, but that's okay. That's too much echo. Yeah, but let's move on. So we have a question from Ajinkya on LinkedIn Live. So please, audience, keep the questions coming, whether it's on YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook. We'd love to at least have a feeling that someone is watching us. Otherwise, it's like it's already awkward, talking to a monitor. Don't make us feel that we are talking to a wall rather than nothing. So please keep the comments coming. We have a question from Ajinkya, which is quite valid in these times. With no face-to-face events organized nowadays, what other ways can make me achieve networking in general? So that's, I think, a very relevant question during these tough times. So what are your thoughts, Maria?
I think it also depends on what is it you're trying to achieve. So, for instance, for me, the main source of networking has become LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such an amazing platform because I see a lot of interesting posts and articles. So it helps me to grow and learn. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
growing as a person. And if I'm growing as a person, inevitably I will grow professionally as well.
Yeah.
And also, I get to talk to people from all around the world. And now more than ever, people are open to have a conversation, over the phone or over a video chat. You can get in touch with someone from US or from UK or anywhere else in the world. And they're more than ever they're open to have a chat, and once again you can make friends and you can find collaborators and you can find mentors and so on. So it really depends what are you looking for. And while for me LinkedIn has become the best platform, of course there's also Facebook and Instagram, for example. So I can see a lot of people communicating and building relationships on those platforms as well. And well, Twitter probably would be the last platform to build a
I,
relationship.
I hear
But it
TikTok.
works
I hear
well.
TikTok is shooting up right now, but I have no idea what goes in there. But yeah, that's probably the future. So I completely agree with you, Maria. LinkedIn has been a huge platform for me as well. So the events that I do usually used to be on Melbourne, and it used to have a restricted audience, and people from other cities and even from other countries used to say, is there a recording for this? Can we somehow go online? And now because of this situation, I have participants from India, from China, from other cities like Adelaide, Perth, Brisbane, and we are all having fun. We are making new friends, and probably I think in the last couple of months I've made more friends than I've made in the past 1 year of actual networking. So it's a different world out there, and I think everyone is open to having an online conversation, and that's definitely adding to this. So let's continue to the conversation. You mentioned about having a clear priority or a clear goal while going for networking. Can you probably touch on an example, or probably break it down rather, because for example, if it's a job seeker, their end goal would be to get a job. If it's a business person, their end goal would be to get clients. But we have to break it down and strategize on each networking event that we go. So can you share a story? Stories are usually appealing for people. Can you share a story or an example which can explain what you actually mean by priorities and goals for one networking event and the bigger picture?
Yeah. When we set a goal, so for example, if someone is looking for work, it's important to decide what kind of position they want to find. And of course, once they make a decision about that, it becomes clear what industry they want to work in, maybe what are particular companies that they want to work in. So then they can do some research and find out, okay, in this particular industry, what kind of events are happening,
Yep.
or those companies. And a lot of companies these days they bring networking to them. They're the ones organizing networking events and other types of events. And when we say networking, it actually doesn't have to have the word networking in the title of the event.
Yeah.
It could be, for example, a charity event, or it
Yeah.
could be a seminar. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anywhere where you get to meet people, anywhere where you can start a relationship and build that relationship further on, any opportunity is a networking opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I heard of people finding a job through just striking a conversation in an elevator with someone.
Oh, yeah, that.
Or speaking to a cashier in Woolworths, and then person behind them hearing that this person was looking for some for a particular position. So anywhere you go, anywhere where there's more than one person, so anywhere where it's more than you,
Yeah.
becomes a networking opportunity. And once you start looking at that from that angle, you start recognizing opportunities in that.
Absolutely. I think networking, the idea that we are bringing here is networking is more of a mindset rather than something that you turn on and off. And, you say, okay, I'll do 2 hours of networking today. I mean, it doesn't work that way. And I also I think this happened last year. So one lady got a job. I mean, she was working as a waitress in a restaurant, and she was serving a couple of people, and they were talking something about data analysis or something, and the waitress she just chipped in for a conversation, and that one person ended up being he was a CEO of a company, and she got into an interview and she got a job. And I was like, what? So networking, I think it's a mindset of how you can build a relation and a connection with someone, and it could be anywhere. It could be while you're walking down the street. It could be anywhere, and that mindset is really important. That was a nice story. So we have a question from Yashdeep on YouTube. Yashdeep is asking, what are the attributes of having an impressive personal brand? I mean, what is it that attracts people?
I think when people understand what is it your mission, what is it you're trying to achieve, so when you clearly explain where you're going, that excites them.
Mm-hmm.
And also when they see how passionate you are about it, that's
Yeah,
the other thing that also excites people.
absolutely.
So yeah, these are two things that others have to see.
Yeah, I
You
think
have clarity about where you're going and
authenticity has a huge part to play in this. I mean, if you're not real, if you're faking, or if you're doing something, I mean, it doesn't. I mean, for example, when I do events, I often think, hey, that person can steal my content and present it on some other platform. But when I think about it, even if that person presents the platform, that person won't have the same passion that I'm having. That person won't do it the same way that I'm doing it. That comes from your heart, that comes from your absolute passion, and you can't fake it. So I think authenticity has a huge role to play over here. Thanks for that question. Yes, Steve. Moving on, we talked a bit about strategy and what goals you can do. And while having a chat earlier today, you mentioned that you have to create a strategy for 6 months and stick to it. I don't think people think over 6 months, and that looks like a very extensive strategy. Can you share more insights on that, Mariya?
At least in Melbourne, this is what my experience shows, that whatever type of particular marketing and branding we embark on, it doesn't matter if we network over LinkedIn or if it's face-to-face networking or whatever that is. Whether you're looking for a job, whether you're looking for new business, it usually takes on average up to 6 months. So in order to see whether a strategy is working or not, you got to stick to it for half a year. Sometimes you get results quickly, like within just a few weeks. But in the majority of cases, from my experience, from what I witnessed and from what I heard from others, and from what I've seen from my experience, is it usually takes about 6 months, whether it's online platform or where you're doing something offline.
So how do you measure the progress here, or how do you judge the result? For example, I think most of my audience are job seekers. So let's talk about that. So what is a possible statistic or a measurement for job seekers when they are when they are doing networking with the objective of getting a job?
Well, I think that it's good if you don't find the job straight away.
Yeah. Yeah.
First of all, you become clearer about whether it's actually what you want,
Mm.
because in a lot of cases, we want a particular to be part of a particular profession without actually knowing and realizing what's involved. So when I was 16, I started my first degree, and it was a law degree. And my understanding of the legal profession was very different from what that actually is. So it took me many, many, many years to see, what that is, and
Yeah.
realizing that was very different from what I was expecting. And I ended up changing my specialization a few times as well.
Hmm.
So through networking, you get to talk to people in the industry or that particular profession, and it helps you to one of the things it helps you to understand whether what you're trying to get yourself into is actually what you really want, whether you have the correct understanding of what it takes to be a person or to be in that particular job position.
Yeah.
So it's one of the things. Another thing is that, in particular in Melbourne, up to 80% of jobs actually are not advertised.
Hmm.
And you can hear about them and you can get an interview only if someone recommends you.
Absolutely.
So the majority of work in Melbourne is actually obtained through networking, through
Yeah.
your contacts.
Yeah.
So it becomes about who you know.
I used to say, who you know matters more than what you know. But Jonathan, you know Jonathan as well. So Jonathan corrected me saying that it's not even who you know matters; it's who knows you that matters more. So if
Oh,
people,
wow.
so that was a brilliant conversation. He somehow comes up with such, interesting perspectives of how things are, and I absolutely love him.
He's amazing.
Yeah, he's an amazing
One
person.
of my favorite people. He's absolutely amazing.
Yeah. So we have a question from Koil on LinkedIn. She's asking, does personal branding help in building up our profiles in any way? If yes, how so? So I think what she means is, does this build up your visibility and build up the what your profile is or what you are about?
Absolutely. You see, if we look at what was happening, let's say 20 years ago, when someone was getting hired, employer was looking mostly at their education and
Mm-hmm.
their work experience. But these days, less and less employers look at that.
Yeah.
And one of the first things that they consider is whether your values align with the values of the company. And they also consider how you can contribute
Mm.
to the growth of that business. So when you show your branding, partially what you show is what your values are.
Mm.
And this way, people who know you can recommend you for an interview or approach you directly. So it's a huge part of branding to
Yeah.
show your values, what you're passionate about, whether you're a person of integrity. These are all components of branding.
Yeah.
And this is why it's so important these days because, how many languages you speak or how many degrees you have, it just becomes more and more relevant. It's more about values, soft skills, passion, mission, vision, all of those things
Yeah.
that
Absolutely.
unfortunately I'm not really taught.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, I this is one question that I ask on most conversations. What changed in the past decade? Probably a decade ago, personal branding wasn't a thing. Your skills matter, what you do matter. But we are right now in a probably in an age of information where you can Google anything you want. Am I sick? Am I going to die? Just Google, you'll figure out, you'll figure out the results. That's a stage we are in. So I think information and technical skills are, something that people realize that they can build on and they can figure things out. But what you are, what are your values, what do you stand for? That we are becoming more obsessed on that, and that's what employers are looking for. So that's a big change that's happening. I also like the point that you said. It's there are multiple different things to it. One thing is figuring out who you are, and I think we have a question from Sonal, which I'm not sure if you're ready to answer. She's asking, how did you find your purpose, Mariya?
Well, I always knew my purpose was to help other people. So
Yeah.
regardless of what I was doing, whether I worked as an interpreter or uni lecturer or lawyer, and now I do speaking and group trainings. So regardless what is it I was doing, the mission was always the same.
Mm.
It's just the way I
Yeah,
helped.
you're using different tools to uh, paint that right picture. That's the way I'd like to say it. So yeah, coming back to the conversation. So I think there are two parts to it. One is to understanding who you are. So if you don't know what your purpose is, probably whatever you paint or whatever you put out there might look fake. Right. So it's very important that you know what you want and what is it that you are going to do, and then paint that picture out there. So I think I always think of personal branding as two parts. First, figure out who you are, and then go about branding it. Brand and networking, LinkedIn, social media, whatever it is. Those are like tools for marketing yourself. But the figuring out part is probably the hardest one, I would say.
It is, but what would help is that to realize that if you make a decision, it doesn't mean that you have to stick to it for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing and no one stops you from changing your mind in 2 hours or 2 months or 2 years or 20 years.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that stops people from making decisions and setting goals is for some reason thinking that, oh, if I'm going to make a decision, it's going to be for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But it's not
No, it's
true.
not.
We can see that in particular these days, a lot of people change their career every few years.
Yeah.
It becomes a norm,
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I'll quote Jonathan Mulby on that.
Yeah.
He gave me one of the best life lessons, one of the best life advices I
Hmm.
have ever got. He said to me, you know what? Treat everything in life as as an
Oh,
experiment.
yeah. That's beautiful.
It's not about winning or losing or whatever. It's about realizing that mistakes and failure are part of success, not
Hmm.
opposite to success.
Yeah.
And just treat everything as an experiment.
Yeah.
And that was one of the life-changing
That's beautiful.
advices I have ever got. I'm so grateful to him for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Treat everything
complete
as an
I
experiment.
I completely agree on that as well. Unless you try it, you wouldn't know whether you like it or not. So it's not like you do something and you have to continue doing that for probably 5, 10 years. It's not like that. Probably 1 year down the lane, you'd realize that that's not you, and that's fine. But if you did not try it, you'll probably regret. You'll probably think 5 years down the lane, hey, should I have done that? That's life, right? It keeps changing every year. You might keep changing what is it that you like to do, but it's important that you kind of chase it down and live your life for that rather than doing it for the sake of it. So it's very important. And love Jonathan for sharing that quote over here.
Yeah. I
uh,
could give an example from my own life. There
yeah,
was
yeah,
a
go
period
for
of
it.
my life where I had a dream of becoming an ambassador.
Hmm.
And I dreamt about it for a couple of years. And I actually went into the Academy of Diplomacy and I started studying there. And it was an incredible experience. But half year into the degree, I realized that my understanding of who ambassador is and what kind of a culture in embassies is, and my whole understanding of that profession and that industry was very, very different from what was actually taking place.
Hmm.
So, half a year into the degree, I realized that nope, that's not my dream. But I finished my degree.
Okay, okay. I thought you dropped
Never
out
dropped
halfway.
in the middle. But it was a great experience. It really helped me to grow. This is when I learned Spanish and French, and This is where I did most of my work as an interpreter as well.
Hmm.
So although when studying, I wasn't getting closer to the dream that was no longer a dream. I actually grew so much on a personal level and professional level as well
Hmm.
that it was very, very helpful for my next stages of my life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, absolutely. So every experience, I think, whatever it is. I mean, I think I was reading Simon Sinek's Start with a Why, and I think he mentions there is no failures, there is only feedback. Was it him or was it someone else? I'm not sure. Anyway, I read this somewhere. I mean, there is no failures, there is only feedback. As in, unless you try it out and unless you learn from the experience, that's what it's about. It's not a failure. It's not something to regret. So it's very important to take it as a stepping stone for whatever you're going to be. We have a question from Sujit on LinkedIn. He's asking personal branding. He's asking about personal branding on a resume. Does that add up? Like, should I connect the dots as a journey on my resume or only on LinkedIn?
Hmm. Well, when we submit a resume, we have to keep in mind who we're targeting.
Hmm.
Because once again, as we spoke a bit earlier, it's no longer about showing how smart we are.
Hmm.
It's about showing what kind of a person we are and how we can add our value to our future employer. So, in particular, if we send out resumes to different companies, we need to study what the company is about, what their mission and vision is, what their values are, what kind of problems they have,
Hmm.
how can I help to solve those problems, how can I help to grow this business, how to make it more successful. So when we draft a resume, we need to alter it, we need to adjust it, we need to edit it every single time
Hmm.
whenever we send it out.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a bit different when you post it on LinkedIn, because this way you're trying to throw the net widely.
Yeah.
But once again, in the resume, it's important to identify not just where you graduated from, but also what other work you were doing. Maybe you did some volunteer work, for example. What are your hobbies, for instance? And maybe you played in a band.
Yeah, anything is
Maybe you
important.
love
Yeah.
cooking, because it seems like irrelevant things, but
Mhm.
actually, when you put those things together, those little bits and pieces together, they create a picture of who you are, what kind of person you are.
Yeah.
In particular, whether you can work in a team or not, whether you're a person of integrity or not. Are you hardworking? Do you have attention to detail? So when you put those little things into your resume, when a HR person looks through them, it adds more to the picture. It becomes like icing on the cake, and
Yeah.
cherries and flowers on the cake.
Yeah, yeah. I
It
know you
makes
don't
you more
literally
attractive.
mean icing on a resume. I mean, it's just a metaphor. Yeah. So don't go ahead and submit a resume with icing and roses. On a related topic, we have a question from Jeremy on LinkedIn. You talked about chasing your passion. What advice would you give for a recent graduate who has only gotten their feet wet in terms of experience? That's a good question, I think.
Yeah. It is difficult these days because partially we, of course, under pressure from people around us,
Hmm.
and for a lot of students, they often, finish a particular degree because their parents wanted them to,
Yeah.
or because they had a different perception of the profession.
Hmm.
And a lot of students after graduation, they don't feel passionate about what
Yeah,
they studied,
absolutely.
and often what they studied is actually already outdated as well.
Yeah,
Things change so quickly, that often, yeah, the way education system is unfortunately, by the time you graduate, you have to relearn again.
yeah,
And when you go to work, you just, yeah, you have to start over again. You have to relearn everything. I think it would be good to catch up for coffees or video
mm,
chats at the moment with people who inspire you, people who
mm,
you respect,
mm,
people who you look up to, people who maybe wrote interesting articles that got your attention. So catch up with them and have a conversation, maybe even like for 15 minutes, and ask about their life experiences or their professional experiences. And the more of those conversations you have, the closer you'll be getting to finding out what makes you tick.
yeah,
What is it you feel passionate about? So
yeah,
it's one of the things that could really help and would really help as well.
yeah. I absolutely agree. I mean, it's very important to figure out what is it that you tick, what is it that keeps you ticking, or what is it that makes you happy, and that's the beginning. And the only way to figure this out to explore, talk to people, talk to experts out there. I mean, um, there's tons of experience out there, and people love to have a coffee, even if it's a virtual coffee. People actually love to have that right now. So grab that opportunity and find it out. I would say chase it down rather than passively going and looking for it. Now, coming to networking, one common question that I get is yes, they go for a networking event, they have wonderful conversations, and it looks like they've made a buddy for life. But after that, nothing happens. It's really hard to maintain a connection, especially if it's a professional relation. For example, if it's a job seeker, I mean, they had a conversation with a hiring manager or a recruiter, but it's hard to uh, maintain that relationship, or it's hard to get something out of it probably a month or two down the lane. So, what are your secrets on maintaining a relationship, Maria?
It is hard to maintain any relationship, but that's the secret, maintaining it.
Hmm.
People focus, whether it's a romantic relationship, or friendship, or employee-employee, or parent-child, or in this case, you meeting an HR person, whatever the relationship is, somehow naturally we focus on the connection, on the chemistry, on that click. But what we need to focus is on the construction, on maintenance, on building that relationship further on. And to be honest, success to great networking is finding creative ways to
Mm.
follow up. So it could be, for example, sending an article or inviting that person to a particular networking event, or there are other ways. It's not just to say hey, hello. It's about giving value to the person. And in order to know how to give value to that person, you got to listen. So when you meet them,
Um,
when you network with them originally, keep asking questions. Don't talk so much about yourself, but try to learn as much as possible about them, because then you will see what is it they need, what is it they want, what is it happening in their life professionally or personally. And when you come across a particular article or a particular book, you can send the link to them about that article, or you can post a book to them saying,
mm.
you know what, I remember we had a conversation and you mentioned this, this, and this. And I came across this article, I came across this book, and I realized that, this is what we talked about, or this is what maybe you would find interesting. So the more you learn about the person once you click,
Yeah.
the more ways you will come up with, think of later on afterwards to follow up with this person. And yes, you have to be more creative than just saying
Yeah.
hi, just checking in, still remember you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think when you take transactional relationships out of picture, I think you will find creative ways to keep in touch. So typical questions that I get, should I pick up the phone and call them every week? I mean, this is a job seeker situation. Or should I send an email every week? Or should I go and knock their doors every week? So those are the typical questions I get. But I think it's very important to respect what is coming in, and have you use a creative way. I mean, I absolutely like how you said, came across an article and this was something related to the conversation you had, and then take that conversation ahead, and those are some little nice ways to do it. Do you have any other examples of how a creative keeping in touch can be? I mean, any experiences that you had, or have you had any weird experiences in the past from someone else?
No, my networking experience has been really pleasant.
Okay.
One of the great ways is, instead of having a business card, just connect on LinkedIn
Oh yeah.
or connect on Facebook.
Yeah.
And this would really help you to see more what the person is about and
Hmm.
what they're up to. And also, if you start posting things, that other person also can start seeing what's on your mind as
Mm.
well. So, in particular, LinkedIn is a really great form of following up. And following up is about touch points. So think about it that way. And no, it absolutely doesn't have to be every week or every other week.
Yeah.
It could be something as once a month. Once again, key is consistency.
Yeah.
So you can touch base once a month with sending an article, or creating a post, setting a link to that post, or just sending a postcard, or yeah, just sharing thoughts. Or you can say, oh, you know what, we met at such and such
Yeah.
networking event, and I'm going next month to something similar.
Mm.
So if you enjoyed that event, would you like to join me or meet me at that other event?
Mm.
It's free, or I can offer you an extra ticket or whatever that is. Or, there's going to be a seminar held or webinar held on that particular topic that we discussed. So there is, once again, once you know what the person needs and wants and what's happening in their personal and professional life, because it doesn't necessarily have to be only about professional things. It could be something about personal things as well.
Yeah.
As long as you have understanding and clarity about that, as long as you have that information about what person wants and needs, it becomes very easy to come up with ideas. Your brain starts working already subconsciously,
Yeah.
and once you see an article, you will recognize it, and you'll send it. So once you have understanding, it becomes very easy to follow up, to create those touch points with that other person. But yes, don't bombard them on a frequent basis, because they'll just like they'll think you're
Yeah.
annoying and they'll just block you. And
I have people who, message me like once a month, same copy paste message. So if I scroll up their chat, hi, how are you? How are you? What's happening? And my reply is, I'm fine. And again, after a month, hi, how are you? I'm fine. That's what I see when I scroll the chat, and I can know I know it's transactional, and they're doing for the sake of it, and there's no genuinity in that. And I absolutely like the way you said about touch points, because this is something that I say as well. I don't keep in touch with everyone in my network, but if you ask anyone in my network, they know who I am just because they see my LinkedIn activity. I post 3 times a week, so I kind of I'm on their face, even though I'm subtly doing it. I'm not directing it personally. That memory is fresh. I mean, people know who I am, and if they've met me, their memory is fresh. So it's very important that you create some touch points like that as well. On that point, another good question from Sujit on LinkedIn. Having an online presence is very important, like having your own website. But how can I make it more appealing apart from blogs, projects, etc.? So this is also a question that I get often. What content do they? For example, if you're relying on blogging and sharing content or generating content, what content can people share?
Well, visuals are also very important. So it's good to here and there change photos and also post videos as well. Because one of the important things to remember is that people will remember how you feel, how you make them feel.
Yeah.
So they might forget what you said, but they'll remember how you make them feel. So if you record like a 1-minute video and you post it on LinkedIn, or post it on your website, it could be of much great value than if you sit for a week writing an article.
Yeah, absolutely.
Writing a blog. But once again, to remind you, the secret is in consistency.
Yeah.
So if you're consistent, people see that you're serious about what you're doing, and also that you're reliable. And once they're ready to come and do business with you or to offer you a position, they will do that. So you have to keep showing that you're there and you're available and you're trustworthy and you feel very passionate and you're not just going to disappear, and you're progressing with what it is that you're doing. When time comes, people will contact you. So don't focus on how many likes or comments you get on your posts, because there is so much more people who see what you're doing and they just simply don't like a comment. I think only about no more than 10% of people who like your content actually interact with it. That's the latest statistics that I heard on LinkedIn. So just keep doing what you're doing, what you love, what you feel passionate about. And trust me, people are seeing that.
Yeah.
And through consistency, they will understand that they can trust you. And once the time is right, that you're the person to go to.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I also always say, you have to give before you take, rather, so keep sharing content, keep sharing, it could be some content of someone else's. Just share it and acknowledge that person for it. And when you continuously do it, things just happen. You don't have to force anything into it. So consistency is very, very important. If you do, if you do good for a month, and if you don't do much for the next month, you're kicked back again and you're starting from scratch. So it's very important that you are consistent on that. Very good conversation on.
We speak about consistency. Once again, it doesn't have to be every single day. It could be just doing something once a week, for example. And once a week, everyone can find time to make a post, or even to share, like you mentioned, to share someone else's video, to share someone else's article and put your comments on that. It doesn't have to be original content every single time. It could be a quote that really excites you, and inspires you. And when you post it, other people might, for other people, it might be exactly what they need as well on that particular day, and they would appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And one easy trick that I ask all our viewers is, if you don't know what to post or what content to post, share what you felt today or what you learned today in this meetup. Tag me and Mariya, and we'd be absolutely stoked when you see a post and they learn something from it. I mean, it'll make us happy. It'll make anyone who reads it happy. So go ahead, you have content for tomorrow. Then that take it as a challenge. I'm waiting for a few posts tomorrow to see how what did you learn out of this event. Now, we touched on various points on how networking can actually help you, how to approach networking. But I'm sure there are a lot of mistakes that people do as well here. So just so that people are aware of what it is, what are some common mistakes that people do while networking?
The main mistake is running around because, like as you mentioned, in particular, it's very exhausting. It's very exhausting. It takes time and energy to get to the event, to be at the event, to come from the event home. And all that running around is just burning you out. So the main mistake is saying yes to everything. And I would like to actually quote Warren Buffett, who said that what separates successful people from very successful people is that very successful people say no almost to everything.
Absolutely, I agree to that.
So some legwork could be useful because in the future it would help you to be more picky, to be better at choosing what to attend. You'll have a better understanding after doing some legwork. What kind of events are there, and also you'll gain understanding what is it you want specifically. And like we talked, it could be maybe finding new clients or looking for a job, or it could be masterminding or having brainstorming conversation or growing in a personal level. Or for example, one of the networking groups I used to go to, and they started at 6 a.m. on Fridays. Every
Okay.
time they invited me, I went to that group because I just loved people in the room.
Oh,
And I was giving a lot more business to them than I was getting.
yeah.
But that energy in the room that they created every single Friday morning, it gave me such amazing boost that Fridays were more productive for me than my entire week. know, I got more things done through Friday than through the whole week. So it could be that. It could be just meeting like minded people and energizing each other,
Hmm.
giving each other that boost on the
Yeah,
hump day or on Friday
yeah.
when you already have done so much and you feel a little bit tired. So one of the things it helps you to clarify what is it you want, because maybe one year it is about looking for work and finding a particular job, and next year it could be about personal growth, or masterminding or having brainstorming conversations or helping a particular cause by going to particular charity events. So that goal can also change. It doesn't have to be fixed for the rest of your life. You just have to make a decision. Okay, right now, at this point in time, what is my goal right now? And then you can change it. Like I said, 2 hours later, or 2 months later, or 2 years later.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a question from Jodi on YouTube. I think you kind of answered that already. Her question is, as part of networking, we often work upon expanding our LinkedIn network. In such cases, how do we go about handling those relations? She says it could be a full-time job to be attentive of all of them in terms of keeping the connection alive. So you already mentioned, go for quality over quantity. Don't just go for everything. It's important that you keep in touch. Or, if you're generating content, just connect to them on LinkedIn, have an initial conversation, and then you can generate content, they'll see it. So you create that touch points over there. So I hope that answers your question, Jodi. Uh, now,
If I may, I would love to add to that. It's very important to stay in touch with people who bring the best in you. So if something doesn't feel right about a person, trust your instinct, and it doesn't matter what potentially they could do for you. If
yeah,
they could do something for you, doesn't mean that they will. And if they will, it doesn't mean that you will actually benefit, in the future from what they're offering you. So it's very important to stay in touch with people who, like I said, who bring the best in you. And also, multiple studies show that we can sustain only up to 150 proper
yeah,
relationships at a time.
yeah,
So it's very natural. It's one of the things that we should do is audit our contacts at least once a year, to see who those up to 150 people are, and that includes relatives and friends.
I remember when I used to do the network work, I always used to get confused with names. And I was having this conversation with a person called Michael Lambert. I'm not sure if you know him. By the way, he'll be in one of the following episodes as well. So he said, my 150 list is full. Now, if I have to remember your name, I have to kick out my mom. So I'm not doing it. That's the reason I'm not doing it. So that was a fun way to explain it as well. So yes, so that puts things into perspective. Now, yeah,
It's important to keep updating the list.
yeah.
There's a really beautiful quote. If you're not losing your friends, you're not growing.
Mm. that's deep. That's deep.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and it was very painful for me when first few times I had to remove people from my life.
Mm-hmm.
It was an excruciatingly painful experience because at the time, for some reason, I thought of it as a disloyalty.
Yeah.
But then I realized that actually, if I'm removing people who do not bring joy into my life, those people who don't help me grow, those people who are trying to drag me back or, you know, negatively affect my life in any other way, then I'm being disloyal to myself.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know, so if you're not
absolutely.
losing your
That's
friends,
that's
you're not
yeah,
growing.
that's a good perspective. Hopefully, we'll be in touch. I'll be in your list even after 2 years. Let's let's see to that.
Absolutely.
Now, coming to the coaching aspects of personal branding, the one common mistake that I see are people are really ready to invest when it's a technical certification, or it's some university thing, or it's something that adds to their skills. They're ready to invest it without probably looking at how much it costs. But when it comes to personal branding, or probably it's because there is a fine line, or they don't understand what the value is that they get out of it. And it's usually expensive, so people hesitate to invest into it. So for example, I kind of picked your brains for about an hour right now, and I got a lot of information, but you have so much information that you can talk for hours and hours and hours, and that time costs a lot of money. So what would you say to people who are kind of unsure whether to invest in personal branding? How do you explain the value to them?
When we pay for education, we usually, those fees usually vary from where we study and not so much due to what is actually given to us in terms of education. So it's not about so much of the quality of education, but what kind of institution or university or RTO we go to. Because when we graduate, if that's a recognized organization, it means that we would have greater chances of finding work. So this is why fees vary. This is one of the main reasons. So when we talk about hiring someone to help us to draft a resume, or to clarify our personal branding, or help us to spruce up our LinkedIn profile, this is what it is. It is an investment. So it's not about how much money you're spending now. It's about how much it can bring you after it's done.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is why those coaches and mentors and consultants who they charge for a reason, because they give enormous value. And it's not about how much time they spend with you, it's about all those years of experience that they have, and this is about what is it they can give you, the value that they give you. So whatever they charge, that's true value.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well explained, Mariya. To our viewers, we are we'll probably end in another couple of questions. So if you have any questions, please leave a comment now. We'd love to hear from you and answer your questions. Now for this is the last question, at least, that I've written down. You already mentioned that you need a strategy for 6 months and lay it out and measure what results you're getting. Now, with personal branding, say for example, someone is starting today, and it's a long journey. You don't do it in a week. You don't do it in a month. You have to figure out who you are. You can keep changing. This month you like this. Next month you can be a different person. But and that's what kind of confuses people. What is the value out of it? Am I in the right path? And questions like that. So typically, how long would you say you have to wait before you see the results coming out for that person?
It's all
I know
very
it's a tough question.
individual. It depends. It depends what is it you looking for. It depends how focused you are, how much effort you put into this. Even like with touch points and following up, if you follow
Mm.
up with person once in 6 months, it's going to bring you very different results
Yeah,
from if you follow up with that person on a monthly basis or every
yeah,
other month. So it all depends because we're all very different and we look for different things and we get different opportunities. We go to different networking events, we meet different people, and we follow up differently as well. So it's all very, very individual. Sometimes you can get what you want, at first event by meeting the very first person.
yeah. That's
I
a lucky
know
one.
examples like that where you can basically get what you're looking for
Mm.
overnight.
Mm.
Like it happens, but
Yeah.
sometimes it does take months, and probably it happens for a reason if
Mm.
it takes so long. In particular, for you to get clearer about what is it you actually truly want. Are you following your vision, or is it
Mm.
something that has been imposed on you by the society or by parents or by friends or whoever is in your environment?
Yeah.
So if it takes longer, it usually means that, you're either not ready or there's something much better that awaits you from what is it you're setting as a goal.
Yeah. And I absolutely like the fact that you mentioned that it's important that it's what you like. I'm getting echo again. That's a technical glitch, by the way. It's not what you like. It's what your sorry, it's about what you like. It's not what your parents, society, and your peers impose on you. If you're doing stuff that someone else has asked to do, you to do, you won't be in what's the word I keep coming across as you won't be in congruence with what it is, right? So it's very important that personal branding is about you. It's not about someone else. It's about you. What is it that you like, and what is it that you'd like to share across there? I think we have one final question from who was it? One final question from Archita, and we probably touched on this quite a few times. But how to network with people for mentorship? Mentorship. What would be the strategy? I personally think everyone loves to mentor people, but there is kind of uh, what is a word to put it? I'm not sure what. People hesitate to ask for it. People think it's not probably a good thing to ask for help or mentorship. So what would your few points be on that?
Well, first of all, I'd like to mention that we have to be mindful about that other person
Mm.
because, we all have our own life, and sometimes it could be our own time. Even if we want to help, we can help only so many people,
Mm.
and there is only 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
And we can mentor only so many people at a time, and also it depends what else is happening in our life. So when you reach out to someone for mentorship, often you don't know what's happening in the life of that person. Maybe they were just diagnosed with something, or maybe they just got a huge contract and they need to spend all their awakening hours working on that contract, or maybe something else. So if a person says no, most of the times it's just about timing being wrong.
Mm.
And also is about how you ask as well. And if you want to get something, give something. It doesn't have to be money, but every person needs something. No one has it figured out. No one has it together 24/7. Every single person does need something. So if there's something that you could help them with, like for example, if you see that they're struggling with marketing, but how you have ideas how to improve it, you can say to them that it would be really great to have a few conversations. I really would love to get some mentorship from you. In exchange, I really would love to help you with your marketing on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever that is. Or I could introduce you to a few referral partners, or introduce you to a potential client, or get you a speaking opportunity, or this or that. So before before reaching out for mentorship, I think it's important to find out what's happening in the life of that person and to see whether there's something you can do for them.
Absolutely. That's golden advice. So I think we are done with that. We have no more additional questions. I have no more additional questions. I hope you had a fun conversation in this. It's always tricky when it's online and everyone is seeing us live. Like you said, if we screw up, there is no looking back. It's live and it's out there. But I think we both of us did well today. Thanks for being a part of this, Mariya. If you'd like to share something, please go ahead. And how can people get in touch with you? I mean, you can probably share about that as well.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a delight. I've had a really great time. I'm hoping that we did help a lot of people today.
Yeah.
And I'm always happy to come back for another round.
Oh, yeah, I would love to have you. I'm sure we have enough topics to talk. Yeah.
In particular, I love branding and networking. These
Yeah.
are some of my favorite topics, and there's so much more to discuss.
Mhm.
And I'm mostly on LinkedIn and Instagram. So please connect with me on LinkedIn. Please follow me on Instagram. I post quite a lot of content in regards to well-being and personal development in particular. Yeah, so these would be the best platforms to get in touch with me.
Thank you. And to all the viewers, the challenge is still valid. Please post how good we were and how much knowledge we gave to you tomorrow, and tag us both. It would make us happy and it would make more people happy. So thanks to all the viewers for being a part of this, for engaging us and making this a fun conversation. I think that's the end of this event. Thanks to all for being a part of this. I'll come back with more awesome people to chat with. Thank